Hello, friends. Welcome to this bonus episode of D20 The Curtain Behind the Curtain, where Oklahoma Theater Geeks hit record and talk about their new addiction to Dungeons & Dragons. As we are literally discovering these characters in real time, we thought it might be fun to share some of the characters' basic backstory, as well as a few truly behind-the-curtain clips from our Session Zero. We hope you find this useful, or at least informative. Enjoy. We're going to start with the trope. We're going to start with these guys meet in a tavern. Obviously, we're not talking about five strangers. We're talking about a reunion of sorts. Just to get off to the tough stuff, I want to talk a little bit about hard and soft limits, things that you guys do not want to have involved in the campaign, things that, you know, like it's fine if we touch on them, but I don't want to get into the details of that stuff. Just so that we're kind of on the same page about where you feel the campaign
I have no
should
boundaries.
I have no boundaries. Yeah.
Love it.
I was going to say, I have no boundaries.
Yeah.
My safe word is banana.
Popcorn.
Paprika.
I'm like, is there a line? Oh, it's way over there. Okay, I'm just going to go cross that.
Gonna run past the
The
line.
line is a dot.
I am not a lover of rape stories, and I'm also a mother.
Good old fashioned rape story.
I'm also a mother, so brutal murder of children is also I know that we're playing in a world where bad things happen,
Right.
and
But if we loot their bodies afterwards.
then you're gonna have a toy.
Lappis's whole character backstory is screwed now.
I agree. I don't necessarily, particularly, I'm not going to get into the details of any rape. And to be real honest with you, I'm not going to get into the details of any sexual encounter. We can get the idea.
We're panning to the wind,
yeah,
blowing the curtains.
for sure.
A one sweaty hand wiping.
I'm
the
not
windshield
narrating
like
any of your
you're
sex
doing.
lives. Sorry.
A headboard slowly.
Maybe
I
you
can
get
see
a
already
bit
how
more.
that could get weird.
And so you've noticed the boundary part.
All of the stuff that we did in our pre-sessions where we just kind of played one-shots and kind of figured out how these characters might sound and those kind of things are going to be part of the canon. So Anton Marivaldi, that kind of Jack Palance character that wanted to take the land, that character is part of the title of your story.
Good, so we get to kill him.
We'll see. We'll see. It's important to remember that he's a known associate of the Black Network. It's important to remember that Commander Tarbaugh Nightkill, the commander of the city guard, was injured and scarred in his effort to help protect the farm. But you earned his favor because Lapis agreed to serve the guard whenever called upon. So he likes her, but feels that maybe she's not a true soldier because she's not of a soldier's background and she's too strong-willed. Kellius, part of the story, the bandit queen, and then that's how Jade ended up staying when she led this band of outcasts known as the Hunkaya, which translates to mean the Shadow Thieves, and they came to the family's aid in the past to help them with to maintain the farm, because she has a past relationship with Seraphimia, but more to the point, because Jade agreed to train with her. And he trained personally with her for a while.
Right.
And then you also had other trainers who you kind of worked with, particularly a monk called Leosin or Lanthar.
Leosin or Lanthar?
Leosin.
Leosin.
We talked a bit more about elements of the one-shots and pre-game sessions that we wanted to integrate into our campaign before we broke into more one-on-one or one-on-two interview sessions so that we can confer without revealing character secrets to the other cast members. What you'll hear now are a couple of highlights from my conversation with Timothy Stewart, who plays Allie. Tell me, give me an overview of Allie. Tell me where he is when this 6 years has come to its end, when he returns to the home. What's driving him as he's coming back to this place?
Well, he didn't really leave under the best of circumstances. The backstory of the barn fire happened, and that was sort of the catalyst that sort of drove him to decide to go away. He's only wanted two things in this life, and that is to make sure that his family is safe and protected, and more.
Yeah.
He just wants the better life. And once the barn fire happened and the result of that evening's escapades sort of sent him, it's time to go. I haven't really created the backstory between Allie and Lapis. She was also part of that decision to get to go.
When she comes into their lives.
He always felt that he kept putting his family in danger, so he had to get away.
One of the first things we talked about is making this epic story as far as the module is concerned, playing that out, but playing it out with in some ways, very ordinary characters in
Yeah.
the D&D world.
Well, yeah, because I mean, when we did our initial rolling for these characters, other people were rolling great stats, and mine were not.
Yeah. At this point in his existence, what is his most notable positive traits?
His love for his family.
Okay.
That he will sacrifice himself for people that he loves. That's sort of why I went with the name Altruian, that he was always wanting to give everything that he has. But on the flip side of that is also his worst trait of he wants it for himself.
At first look, one would never guess that Altruian James Hillgarden knows how to run a dairy farm and all the chores that goes along with it. The eldest of the Hillgarden siblings, he took on the role of big brother and man of the house, looking after his adoptive mother Seraphemia and his siblings. He never knew his birth parents. He's been with Seraphemia, or Mama, since he was a baby. A gifted musician and an artist with a rapier, he sees himself as the protector and provider to his brother and sisters. However, the tiefling blood that runs through his veins gives him a strong desire for the better things in life. Dedicated and loyal to his family, he still has a desire to become more than that of a farm boy. He wants to wear the finest clothes as he eats the most sumptuous meals, while in the most luxurious inns, with performing on the streets as the amazing James Gardner. A sleight of hand to remove one's gold pouch, or a long con to separate fools from their money. Ali is always wanting more in his life. A desire that keeps him in constant conflict between providing for his family and living a richer life. Things all changed for Ali the night of the barn fire, leading his siblings into the woods to reclaim the escaping livestock, a bear attack, and a fight with an ogre. All culminated in Mother's anger for putting his siblings in danger with a nonverbal demotion to Goat Boy. It was this event that prompted his decision to leave the farm for a better life. Slipping off into the night once the barn was repaired, he left broken-hearted for leaving his family, but hopeful for the adventure that awaits him. Big brother farm boy or charlatan of the streets, Ali walks the delicate line, not knowing which side will win out.
Here are a couple of the highlights from my interviews with Kara, who plays Nezrin, and Jennifer, who plays Ula.
After Ali left, Nezrin followed in tow. That was her connection, so she left pretty quickly after. She is passionately loyal to her family, although she is a true chaotic neutral, and that she is still driven by her own desires and passions.
She wants more.
She wants more. Yeah. She joined a traveling circus, carnival, what have you, and kind of followed that along the Sword Coast, kind of discovering herself and adventure. And she ended up getting married,
Right.
and living in Silverstream.
Okay.
So that's kind of where her path took her before she comes back home. Very much kindred spirit to Ali, idolizes her older brother. That's kind of, I think in every sibling dynamic, you usually have one that you connect with more. And so, yeah, for Nezrin, it's kind of been Ali. So that made sense for her to leave after he left. And also, I think with Ula, there's a little bit more tension, especially in their childhood and their past. There was a competition, especially for Nezrin. She felt like a lot, just the complexities of just sort of that dynamic. I think especially for girls the same age, it's more difficult sort of staking out your position. It's funny because in my mind, I see my own twins a lot with them. The kind that is like they will fight fiercely with each other, but if anybody messes with one another, they'll fight just as fiercely. Her weaknesses are her vanity and yet her insecurities. She's beautiful and she uses that to her advantage. And it's probably, I think, kind of there's a duality to it, that she loves it, that she can gain things from it, but she also hates it because she feels like it's the definition of who she is. So she feels this need of proving maybe more than that while struggling with using it to her advantage as well.
Abandoned in a field of wildflowers, the young toddler was discovered by the tiefling Ali. He named her Nezrin, translating to Wild Rose. The elven girl possessing no link to her past was brought to the hill garden farm of Seraphimia. She would grow to love Sarah as Mama. Growing up, Nezrin became the solid middle child of a brood of orphans, idolizing her older brother Ali while mothering the tender-hearted Jade. Her relationship with her adopted twin Ula was fraught with love, jealousy, competition, and insecurity. Nezrin longed for more than a farmer's life, fashioning crowns from flowers and begging Mama to make her new dresses each time she grew. Nezrin dreamed that she was a lost princess, born to a life of castles, wealth, a fantasy only made stronger by Seraphimia's thrilling bedtime stories of the chivalrous heroes and beautiful maidens. Once she discovered her own magical abilities, Nezrin became even more obsessed with the fairy stories, as Ula referred to them, so much so that she kept the book with her always, often abandoning her chores to read the tales and practice her magic, earning her harsh scoldings from Ali. Nezrin believed in her youth that Seraphimia's book was magic. Thus, each new story simply appeared in its pages, only to discover that Mama secretly transcribed the stories for her dreamy-eyed daughter. As a young woman, Nezrin was known for her beauty, with flowing raven hair and piercing blue eyes, all which she used to her advantage. Her adolescent years spent shadowing her beloved Ali. Nezrin was devastated when her brother left the farm suddenly, leaving her to feel like an outsider amongst her siblings. She decided the time had come to write a new chapter in her own story. Word quickly circulated of a traveling band of performers and oddities, known as the Night Carnival. With Seraphimia's reluctant permission, Nezrin went to see the touring frolic. She did not return home. Nezrin joined the exposition, and her adventure began, and as fate would have it, Nezrin would one day meet a dashing young lord. The two would have a whirlwind courtship and be married in a private ceremony soon after. But not all fairy tales have perfect endings.
Give us an overview of where Ula is when we meet her.
Ali left. Nezrin left. And Ula felt like she should go study at a temple of Lathander. Okay. And so she first went to Burdusk. There's a temple there. And then she moved to Daggerford, which is a larger temple, and it is the Morning Glow Tower. Okay. And she's been there the last several years working in the temple. I think that Ula sort of lives her life by the tenets of being a cleric of Lathander, and so she always tries to find the light in everything and to bounce that back to the people that surround her.
Then, conversely, what do you think about your kind of most notable flaws?
I think that she takes her responsibility to take care of everybody and look after everybody's health to the detriment of herself. I don't think she takes very good care of herself. She's a terrible liar. So she's going to give a tell every time. She's a terrible liar. She's incredibly blunt. She says the things that everybody is thinking, but nobody is going to say out loud. She's always going to be that person who spits it out. And I also, to kind of bounce off of what Kara was saying about Nezrin, I think she's her opposite. And in a lot of ways, wishes she had that silver tongue, and that because how better to spread the word of Lathander than to be a charismatic beauty. And she doesn't care what other people think about her, often to her detriment. And she has a very middle child mentality, which is everybody is talented and everybody's out in the world doing great things, and she's mopping the floors in a temple somewhere. And so, that's ultimately the growth that I would like to achieve with her, is for her to find where she fits in it all and see what's special about Ula. Aasimar children are rare, and their birth is usually celebrated, but no one paid much attention to Ula Reed. Her ma, Orla, died in childbirth. Her da, Colm, loved her as best he could, but he mourned his wife from the bottom of a bottle and often locked free-spirited Ula in a small, dark closet. The bustling city of Erebor provided an early education in survival, and sneaking, and stealing, and hiding. Tall, lanky Ula ran the streets barefoot. She learned some choice curse words near the docks. Molly, a beekeeper, caught 9-year-old Ula in her yard with a fist full of honeycomb and a face filled with bee stings. Taking pity on the starveling girl, Molly invited her into her home, sharing tea and honey cakes, warmth and kindness. Ula visited often. Over time, Molly also introduced the child to her god Lathander, and Ula took to the lessons and whispered prayers of light to him in the dark. Ula's father drank himself to death when she was 10. Molly urged her then to seek safety with her old friend, Seraphimia Hillgarden. Ula arrived at Seraphimia's door with little but the clothes on her back, and there she was welcomed and fretted over and adored for the first time in her small life. She loved and antagonized her siblings in equal measure, growing as the weeds do, wild and willful. Ula has spent the last several years cloistered at the Moonglow Tower, visiting Mother Sarah less and less, summoned home now with unbearably sad news.
I sat down with Jody, who plays Lapis, and Jared, who plays Jade, together. Where is Jade when we meet him 6 years after Allie left?
I think he's feeling very torn between his responsibilities at home and then this desire to find something else in the world. I think that he loves his family and mostly Seraphimia, like he considers it, her his mother. So I think that he feels stuck in a way, but he also doesn't know another place in the world that he'd rather be. So I think he's just kind of emotionally sensitive and a little heartbroken.
Seraphimia is the first interaction he has with even the concept of family.
Yeah,
okay.
and people who show him any kind of real kindness.
Gotcha.
Because all of his past experiences with other people have been very, they don't like him.
He's frightening to look at. And
he's a little weird.
Lapis, how about you?
I think that for her, she kind of took a vow to protect this family, to protect Seraphimia, and Lapis has been around the world. She has seen stuff. She's seen horrible stuff. Her first adventuring party that kind of taught her weaponry and taught her how to fight were all killed. So she learns that she has to protect this. And that is her driving goal, is to keep this family together, protect the family. And when Seraphimia dies, this is what she views as Seraphimia's wish, is to keep her children together.
Gotcha.
And that is what Lapis she's vowed to do whatever Seraphimia needed her to do. And she feels this is something Seraphimia needed her to do. She will do whatever she has to do. And it might not always be the nice thing or the good thing, but it will always be for her the right thing.
Right.
So I'm not good, I'm not nice, I'm just right.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I feel it.
And that's very much where
her
Lapis kind of lives.
Yeah.
She's not good, she's not nice, she's just right.
Yeah.
Feel it. I was reading the module, and then I had this image of the central characters from Young Guns. And I was like, that's kind of the scenario I would like to put them in.
Yeah. I was going to say that's really cool that there's a different dynamic. Like we obviously have very similar ideologies and beliefs, and the fact that you're like, no, I'm going to make this happen. Like, we're going to keep our family together.
I will keep
and
this
I'm
together. And if I have to, beat them and drag
Yeah.
them back to the house, by golly, that's what's going to happen, because she will choose to jump into a situation instead of sitting back and thinking it out.
The way that I'm wanting to play him is it would be hard to find a flaw in his morals. If he's got a problem, it's because he's too shy or too coy,
Gotcha.
or too naive.
I
Okay.
think that's the fun dynamic with these two, though, is
Yeah.
that he is all morals and she doesn't have a lot of them.
Not really. It factors into it.
So much.
I got to do a thing, so that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Jade's going to try and pull her back. The world will see what it wants to see. Believe in who you are, and the world would best be blind. These are the words that Jade has chosen to live by, told to him by his halfling mother, Seraphimia. For all his life, Jade has been seen as one who doesn't belong. His abnormal changeling appearance is frightening to most he encounters, from his pale gray skin to his empty black eyes. As an orphan child raised in a monastery, it was only natural for others to cast him aside. It wasn't until he ran away to the Wood of the Sharp Teeth that he felt he had found a home. After living in solitude for many months, he stumbled upon a small farm nearby. There, he was taken in by the Hillgarden family. Ali, Ula, and Nezrin treated him like one of their own siblings, and of course, Seraphimia, her own son. His time in the woods had taught him patience and diligence, but his family, the family that took him in, taught him how to love, leading him into his teenage years. Jade knew he had strength. It took a great deal to control the manipulation of his appearance, which previously had only occurred by accident and incited more fear and seclusion. But it wasn't until his encounter with the bandit queen, Kelia, an elven acquaintance of his mother, that his strength was seen in a broader spectrum and cultivated. Kelia, in exchange for supplying arms to help save the Hillgarden property from a tyrannous warlord, kept Jade to hone his skills and train him as a fighter, furthering his study in the art of ki. Though Jade made a promise to Kelia, his master, his priorities never shifted from the care of his mother. As his siblings slowly left the Hillgarden farm to pursue lives elsewhere, Jade remained. His relationship with Lapis, a Genasi who Seraphimia adopted as she had with all the children, blossomed into a friendship that became vital to the livelihood of Seraphimia and the farm. They alone took care of the property and in many ways each other. The long days on the Hillgarden farm seem shorter as Jade, now in his 20s, tends to the family duties and the declining health of his mother. But at night, armed with his long staff and robes, Jade trains with persistence, with the belief that if anything is worth fighting for, it is family, even if it means he must fight to keep them together.
Lapis always knew she was an unwanted child. She never knew her genie father, and her unstable human mother abandoned her as a small child. She heard that a Genasi child will drive a human parent to insanity. Her fissured charcoal skin and fire orange hair, a constant reminder of her mother's indiscretion. Lapis grew up on the streets, hiding during the day and rummaging through trash at night for scraps of food. She became adept at fighting, and was eventually taken in by a group of thieves and adventurers who taught her to use a glaive and dagger. When her group was killed trying to protect her from enslavement, she realized it was safer for everyone for her to be on her own. But she always longed for a family of her own. She would join a group of adventurers long enough to get a job done, get paid, and move on. During her last job, she was betrayed by her party and sold to slavers. She managed to escape from the caravan and jumped while they were crossing a bridge. Jumping into the river, hitting the large, jagged rocks below, she floated downstream and eventually washed up on shore. Beaten and broken, she was found by fishermen who took her to Seraphimia Hillgarden, knowing that she would take in unusual cases. Lapis had finally found a place she belonged. She knew she was home. She stayed on the farm and cared for Seraphimia, protecting the only family she's ever known.
So there's one last thing we thought we'd share. Taking inspiration from Critical Role's narrative telephone video series, we highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. The D20 to Curtain crew tried a hand at our own version of the game, allowing each player only one chance to hear the story before recounting it for the next player. In addition to being incredibly fun, we also discovered that it was a very useful exercise that helped bond our players, as well as strengthen our ability to listen for and build upon narrative cues in our own storytelling. we've decided to keep our disastrous retellings to ourselves. But we wanted to share the original stories with you over the coming weeks, since each player was encouraged to create a short tale that would add even greater detail to the party's backstory. What follows is the first of those stories, written by Jennifer Ula Reed. And since it's referenced in an upcoming episode, let me warn you that the story you're about to hear wasn't exactly recounted this way to the other players. Thank you, Critical Role, for the inspiration.
The fall I turned 12, Jade took ill. Mama said not to be scared, but she wouldn't let me visit him. She said I made too much noise. Nessie got to sit at his bedside and read to him, though. Mama asked Allie to fetch willow bark and feverfew from the riverbank so that she might make a potion to ease Jade's symptoms. I knew right where to look, and I told Allie so. "You can help," he said. In the forest, Allie and I gathered the herbs for Mama. I also found a strange bone-white tree, skinny with a stinking sap. "Allie," I said, "this tree smells like farts." He just shook his head and walked away. I pinched some of the sap into a leaf from the tree and shoved it in my pocket, running after him. Later, a grateful Mama brewed the herbs and Jade fell into a healing sleep. Nessie took her book of fairy tales into our bedroom and lit her candle to read more. But the candle's flame sputtered green, and a sickly cloud of smoke, reeking of the privy or rotten eggs, or both, filled the room. "Nessie farted," I yelled. "Ula," Nessie coughed, her eyes flashing lightning. "I will get you for this." I hid in the barn for the rest of the day. But late that night, I went back to that tree and wrapped a chunk of its sap in some waxed paper. Never know when you might need to clear a room or frame somebody for a fart.
And that wraps up this bonus episode of D20 The Curtain Behind the Curtain. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about these characters, a chance to see how their stories and backstories evolve as the players get to know them, and perhaps it'll give you some insight in what lies ahead. As we dive even deeper into this new addiction, share your knowledge of the game and experience with us. You can reach out to us via Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all at D20 The Curtain. Or send us an email at community@d20thecurtain.com. Maybe you'll be the next guest player to join our campaign. In the meantime, we hope you'll stay safe, be kind, have fun, and play the role.